I call the great Maroon supporter on this day of the State of Origin, the member for Wright.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and go the Maroons, go the Queenslanders. Go the Blues, get out of here, mate. Yeah, good luck whichever way that bounces tonight, but 6 in a row is pretty easy to swallow. Mr Speaker, I rise now to speak with reference to the Carbon Credits Carbon Farming Initiative Bill 2011. And I'd just like to, in my opening comments, refer to the objectives of the bill. And it states that this section of the Act sets out the objectives of this Act, Climate Change Convention and the Coyote Protocols. The first objective of this Act is to implement certain obligations that Australia has under, 1, the Climate Change Convention and the Kyoto Protocol. And the second objective of this Act is to create incentives for people to carry on certain offset projects. And it goes on, it speaks to carbon abatement. The third objective of this Act is to increase the carbon abatement in a manner that is considered with the protection of Australia's natural environment and improves resilience and effects of climate change. Now, when you read that in its entirety, I don't really have a problem with it, Mr Speaker. I think that is that's a well sought out overview of what the Act intends to do, and it's not that far removed from the intentions of our own direct action plan on sequestration. However, when I roll on and we go to the simplified outline of the bill, and the following, and if you indulge with me, the following is a simplified outline of this Act. The Act sets up a system for the issues of the Australian carbon credit units in a relation to eligible offset projects. Next dot point is an Australian carbon credit union is personal property and is generally transferable. The main eligibility requirements for eligible offset projects are as follows, and there's another couple here. The project must carry out in Australia. The project must be carried out in Australia, and the project must be covered by a methodology determination made under this Act. The methodology determining must comply with the offsets integrity standards set out in this Act. This Act is administered by the Carbon Credits Administrator. Now that's where the bill starts. The wheels start to fall off this bill, Mr Speaker. This should be a relatively straightforward bill. Whilst we have agreement, I agree with supporting our farmers to generate revenue from sequestration in capturing carbon. I'm not completely convinced today that this bill is the right mechanism to do it, and I'll try and outline that during the course of my speech. Modern day farming practices in my electorate of Wright have come a long way, and I believe that our farmers, in particular the Scenic Rim and the Lockie Valley, we're actually guilty of not marketing the progresses and the advancements that we have undertaken as an industry over many years with reference to carbon capture. Take, for example, the introduced practices of zero tilling. The advancements in carbon capture in that single practice alone has set the industry in good stead. But we are very poor at selling the positive attributes that we do as an industry. The farms in my electorate are predominantly high to medium intensities farming, and their produce practices, which produce broccoli, all the leafy. So you've got broccoli, cabbage, onions, beetroots. They're all great carbon abatement plants that, under this Act, are not included. These businesses are struggling to meet the already escalating input costs in an environment where big business, mostly the oligopolies, are squeezing the processors, and the processors then are squeezing the producers. And at the end of the day, all that squeeze ends up in the wallets, or the squeeze is coming out of the wallets of our mums and dads and the pensioners and the families of people in the electorate, not only of Wright but around Australia. For example, with the expectation of a carbon tax, Heinz Foods, who owns Golden Circle, which is an iconic Queensland company, told my farmers that they'll be sourcing their beetroot offshore as of next year and that my growers will need to make other arrangements. Job losses, when this government have repeatedly said that this tax will actually create jobs. And when we highlight the examples, we're accused of being scaremongering, Mr Speaker. Well, the Prime Minister is on the record of stating that she'll be assisting Australian householders. Well, why? Why, I say, if the polluters are going to pay, well, I hope that you intend to assist the 160 Golden Circle employees who soon won't have a job in Queensland, and the 146 who won't have a job in Victoria, and the 38 that won't have a job in New South Wales. And will your assistance package, the household's compensation package, top them up from their unemployment benefits to what they were earning when they were gainfully employed at Golden Circle? Or maybe you'd like to direct them to this wonderful world of green jobs that you often speak about. And the truth is, you won't top them up. You won't top those people up, and you cannot direct them to any green jobs because there are none. My people need to put food on their table and feed their kids next week. And I challenge anyone from the other side of this House to direct me to the 138 green jobs which I can steer these people into, notwithstanding the flow-on effects that will have in my community. I resent the fact that you continue to say that we scaremonger. Will you assist my farmers and make the many people that they used to employ to harvest the beetroots and direct them to the clean jobs that you speak of? Well, I think not. As for my farmers who operate these high and medium intensity farms, please don't tell me that your answer to them in this content of the bill is that you want them to plant trees. These are high intense production farms. It is just not feasible for these guys to plough their fields back in and plant a row of blue gums and think that they're going to be able to pay their leases on their tractors and their machinery in 12 months' time. That's just straight ludicrous. In addition, when you go out into some of our more broader catchment areas that don't have that intensity with our farming practices, we have a lot of certain grasses that I believe do have carbon abatement actions. But under this bill, they're not captured. They're not captured. And so if you're going to use scientific research as a base point to move forward in this debate, you lose the right to be able to pick and choose the bits of it that suit you. And I encourage you to, when you look at the scientific advice, to take it as a whole picture. And I would encourage that grasses, in particular legumes and certain other varieties, are included in this legislation. Mr Speaker, I have concerns when I see the explanatory memorandums of any bill over 3 pages. However, on this particular situation, the EM is 360 pages. Now, I read the brief to you, and I read that with an intent because I think any like-minded person reading that does not pick up the intent or the objectives of this bill. And it's actually skewered and hidden in the detail, and it's the detail that I have trouble trying to get my head around, so do a lot of my colleagues. We often hear of the government, the business tell them that they want certainty, that business wants a carbon tax. Well, I suggest to you that those businesses that are telling the government that they want a carbon tax are the very businesses that look to prosper and profit from a carbon tax. They are the very businesses that look to have the capacity to pass that on. Because no one in their right mind who is responsible to shareholders would obviously stand up to a government and say, please give me an extra expense that I have no capacity to pass on. So what happens is that you have these hundreds of millions of dollars of commissions that are going to be paid on the trading of these permits that are going to go to the very businesses, the bankers, the traders, the commission takers. They're the businesses that are telling the government that they want a carbon tax because they're going to profit from it. And you know what they're going to do with their profits? They're going to rush down to Sydney Harbour and they're going to buy those beautiful big mansions around the Sydney Harbour, the very mansions that we are told from this government are going to be 2 metres underwater as a result of the carbon tax, if we don't bounce along the way of the carbon tax. So it beggars belief, Mr Speaker, as to how we move forward in a logical way. I also want to just bring your attention, Mr Speaker, to the Logan Country Chamber of Commerce Business Awards that I was at the other day. There were 300 people attended, there were 120 businesses nominated, and over 3,000 people from the area voted for those businesses, coffee houses, hairdressers, real estate agents, just the normal business that you'd have in a community, hotels, and not one of them Not one of them come up to me and said, Scotty, I've got a great idea. I think what we need to try and stimulate the retail sector is that can you get yourself back to Canberra and get us a new tax straight away, because we think that's going to kick things along. No one said that to me, Mr Speaker. The large business houses, the polluters who will pass the cost on, well, it's my small businesses. My small businesses are the ones, they're suppliers. They're going to cop it. And you know what? They're going to pass that cost on to mums and dads. They're going to pass it on to the pensioners. They're going to pass it on to the people that are already struggling. And the mindset that the $500 announcement for the pensioners that was made by this government the other day, at my estimates, that's going to put a carbon permit price in at around $4.50. Because if it comes in at anything more than $4.50, that $500 is going to disappear in a heartbeat, and I look forward to having that debate if and when it ever comes. But I stand by the point, from the Coalition's perspective, that we will rescind a carbon tax if in govern. The silent majority who are slowly awakened to this tax and the web of deception being spun by this government, I want to look 12 months into the future on a hypothetical. But in order to do that, we need to look 12 months into the past on this government's performance on this debate. And I recall 12 months ago that we then had a Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, who was committed to a carbon tax, and in dot point was assassinated as the polls spiralled downwards. A new Prime Minister was elected on the pretence that there would still be a carbon tax. Just before the election, makes the announcement there will be no carbon tax under a government I lead, and then has the audacity to come to this House and say that we backflip, that we don't have a position on this. Our position has been clear all the way through this process. Mr Speaker, who really stands to benefit from the introduction of a carbon tax of this bill and the carbon credits, carbon farming initiative bill that it's relying on? As I said, it'll be the brokers, the trading houses. The true irony is that what they'll do is profiteer from it at the expense of our mums and dads. This debate is unable to progress in a logical, concise, informed manner without a thorough understanding of the regulations that speak to this bill. The bill is also dependent on the carriage of a carbon tax debate, and it raises a number of concerns with portions of the farming community and peak bodies of the agricultural sector. The Carbon Credits, Carbon Farming Initiative Bill 2011 underlying denominator is the price, Madam Deputy Chair. It is the price. Now, when we go to speaking about fear-mongering, I'd make a sweeping assumption that the majority of the fear-mongering that has been laid, or the allegations made to us, predominantly stem from the uncertainty that the government has created in the marketplace by not linking a price to their basic policy. Now, I'm not under any illusion that you don't have a price already in your head. I suggest that it will be probably in line with the ETS, where it was going to come in at a $10 cap, and then let market forces take it out over the following couple of years. A cost of I think at $11 billion in the first year does bring it in around a $10 cap. If that's the intention, just say that, because what you're adopting at the moment is a boiling frog approach. You stick the frog in the water, slowly let the cost get up around them until it actually the frog slowly deceases. With the clock on Madam Deputy Chair, I just bring it back to the point with reference to this bill that it comes back. This is going to come down to an issue of trust, and I just remind you that the Prime Minister said that there would be no carbon tax under a government I lead. There are also comments along the line that business tell us that they want a trading system. Well, my businesses aren't. A carbon trading system will create jobs. Well, I've got people that are going to be looking for jobs, and you can't direct me to where those green jobs are. Businesses want certainty. Well, if they want certainty, tell them what the carbon price is. No one will be worse off under a carbon tax system. Well, who can believe the last bit when no one can believe any of the dot points before? Thank you, Madam Chair.